is joining us online all the way from Nakuru. Ashura Michael is here. She's a member of the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. She'll be assisted by Sylvia Njeri Muturi, who's Ashura's sign language interpreter tonight. She'll be speaking to us about how then do we change this narrative of tribalism in the youth and in politics as well. But there's one comment here that really sums up what we are talking about. Joel Bosire Nyakundi says, it's unfortunate that tribalism has taken center stage amongst us. For once, let's not give the politicians a chance to divide our nation along tribal lines. I am not boarding this narrative from our politicians that my neighbors are now from this or that tribe. Thanks, Joel, for that. And that actually summarizes what our conversation will be. Hashtag Monday Report. We're back in just a bit.
First part was great. Throw her desk into the swimming pool.
What are you doing here, Lou?
Is that really your concern? A fierce man like you.
Detrex soaps are medicated and specially formulated to cleanse the skin and protect against germs. Detrex Aloe Vera, Detrex Cool Mint, Detrex Pine Drops, and Detrex Yellow.
Wagwan, mradi umejipa, acha tuwapeleke na Rieng.
Hii Sunday tuna unveil Kenya's first ever online platform yenye una record, una share video yako, unapata ganji.
Na hii platform iko ndani ya Viusasa, inaitwa Expressions, and it's very easy to use.
All you have to do, fungua app yako mpya ya Viusasa and then you tap Expressions.
Alafu upload your best and most interesting video, ushare na mbogi yako everywhere na uwashow alike.
And then from this Sunday, just imagine tunapatiana 60,000 guizes, yani 60 G's. Mtoko that the most likes anapata 30,000.
Na first runners up anapata 20,000 shillings. Second runners up anapata 10,000.
Usilalie talent.
Express leo na Expressions, judo ina count.
Do ina work.
In town.
Helen Paul.
Hello, madam. Would you like to join us on this mission?
Yes, but how?
Just one question for you. How do you keep your toilet clean?
I use regular detergent and bleach for washing and removing yellow stains. I've been using it for years.
Oh, madam, the regular detergents and bleach are used for washing clothes. To disinfect your toilet properly, you need Harpic 10X. It is specially made for germs and stains removal. Harpic's thick formula settles on stains and gives 10 times better cleaning compared to regular detergents and bleach.
Wow, now I'm convinced, Helen Paul.
Really?
Yeah.
Now that she's part of the mission, the next house is yours.
Yes, sir. Leo kwenye Dimba Itambe. Leo ni Gialdem edition. It's a Gialdem team.
Moja ligi inaanza January. So if I was the coach, Pia William na ekwe bench.
If we win, tutakuwa top of the table.
Uko sure. So na feel akiwa kwetu anakuwa frustrated akwagi na hiyo chance ya kucheza Kenya anataka.
Discover new Guinness Smooth. Perfectly balanced for a smooth, refreshing taste. New Guinness Smooth.
Anywhere. Anytime. Anywhere. Anytime.
Anywhere, anytime.
How?
Because DigiTrust is a first-in-class online platform. Everything you need at a touch of a button. Easy and very secure.
So, to start an account, to deposit my money, to monitor my interests, to access my money,
all online.
Then why did I have to come all the way here?
So that I can tell you, Anza Sasa. Visit invest.icealion.com.
Brilliant. You're just in time for the discussion that we started on the town hall. We were wondering 58 years after independence, why is tribe still a factor in the Kenyan politics and how can it be addressed? Hashtag Money Reporter, Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. We'd like to read your views during this broadcast. Let me introduce my guest one more time, beginning from my immediate left, Ashura Michael. She's a member of the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. Thank you so much for coming in. Sylvia Muturi will be the sign language interpreter. Also, next is Muthiora Kariara, former presidential running mate 2017. Thank you so much for coming in. And Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia, NCIC chairperson. Thank you so much for making time for us this evening. And Shiko Kihika, who's the founder, Tribeless Youth, joining us all the way from Nakuru. She's joining us online. And Rev, I'll start with you. Have we matured enough as a democracy to divorce tribe from our national politics?
Well, you know, 58 years ago, when the country became independent, we had the best chance, the best opportunity to actually have politics based on ideology, but we blew it up. We missed that opportunity. The reason being that if 60 years or 58 years ago, there was the intention to run the politics of this country based on ideology, it could have succeeded. Because when you look at the political leaders of that time, who belonged to the very young political parties, at that time, those political parties were not tribally based. And that is where we should have continued and being very intentional in making sure that we will not transform those political parties from being ideologically based to tribally based. Tanzania did well, but in fact, if you know, even Chama cha Mapinduzi, or TANU at that time, it copied from the Cow and the KANU of Kenya. And then it went on, and because there was the leadership of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, who was so intentional in having a foundation, a strong foundation, ideologically based political party. That is where we went wrong. And unless we trace back and begin now to have ideologically based political parties, then we will still continue to lament that our politics are still tribally based. And therefore, one way of overcoming this problem we have is for the political parties that we have to begin to intentionally become ideologically based. But we are not there yet.
We are not
and
there
we
yet.
have a long way to go if what is happening today is anything to go by. You'll find that any major political party here has an ethnically based foundation and leadership. Everything else comes after that. But that's where actually we are going wrong. And it would have been easier if ODM, Jubilee now could have continued to be ideologically based, but it is not the case at the moment.
All right. Muthiora, you've jumped into the fray before. Is that the situation? Can we entirely blame the politicians?
We have to blame our forefathers. We chose democracy as the path to go. But if you look at things today, what democracy do we have in Kenya? If close to 1 million Kenyans can decide on who their leader is going to be, and then that is overturned by a small group of people. So, first of all, we need to get right the leadership that suits us best, because clearly the democracy we aspired to have is out of place. And secondly, in order for those in power to perpetuate themselves, they chose to divide us. And they did not even get a new way to divide us, but then they used the same path that the colonialists had used. And that's where we lost it. I'm glad that on this panel today we have a person I respect, and he's called it exactly as it is. What we need to do is to be sincere with ourselves and accept that we have failed and we cannot continue as we've been doing.
Okay.
We have to reboot. We have to restart and own up to the mess we have created for ourselves.
All right. Ashura, is this entirely a leadership issue?
Somehow it is. Look, like what my colleague has said, that if you look at Kenya, when you look back 15 years ago, we have the colonials who had colonized us. And after independence, we've seen that the change that Kenya has going forward, we are still trying to copy because we have the self-interest and selfish interest as well. Because the Constitution of Kenya, if you look at the Constitution of Kenya, it is very clear because it talks about, there's nothing that talks about tribalism or individualism. So we need to really change and see how we can make that change, because it's an individual responsibility, because politics has really influenced us. If you look at 30th July in 197, we saw the political violence that had happened as well in Kenya, because most people had lost their lives. Kenyans need to look back at the country, and also like Zimbabwe, we can look at Zimbabwe and Burundi countries, because what has happened because of elections and the tribalism, they've really been affected, the citizens of those two countries, and they are languishing in poverty. So if the constitution is there, even the BBI, we can see that people are tribalism. They focus, yes, this is my tribe, I'm Luo. And what the NCIC chair has said is very clear about Tanzania, because if you look at Tanzania, they have over 120 tribes, which is 3 times the tribes that we have in Kenya. So that means that Kenya can do better than Tanzania. But you're wondering, where are we going wrong? Where are we failing? And BBI, if you look at BBI, it talks about there is no division. It tells us how we can implement that, the ethos on how we can be united and how we can take responsibility, because Kenya is not about government or politics. Kenya is about me and you. We need to see that it's about blood, it's about united and our land and our soil. So we don't look at the tribes, we look at Kenyans.
All right. Thanks, Ashura. And let's bring in Shiko on this. Shiko, where do you think the issue really lies? Because you're the founder of Tribeless Youth. What necessitated that to begin with?
Trevor, I think the issue is our politicians. It's been clear before, and it's clear even right now. They are still driving the same notion or the same conversation about who is the bigger block when it comes to votes. I like the fact that Ashura has brought in the BBI aspect. But my bigger question when it comes to this document is the people who've divided us again and again, the people who are responsible for whatever went down in Kenya in 2007, 2008, are the same people who are telling us that we can actually have a peaceful, or rather, we can still solve this menace through them. That cannot work, because we know very well that we're in a country whereby every 5 years we have to be reduced or taken back into a tribal cocoons so that certain people can benefit from this. Are we willing to do this? Tribeless Youth is generally a journey to show people that beyond tribes, there are deeper issues. And actually, Kenyans can sit down and discuss their issues. Like right now, there are so many issues. We talk about young people and whatever they're going through. This is not about tribes. It's about governance. Are we addressing governance when we are addressing tribes? No, we are not. So for me, it's about us being honest, like Muthiora said, us being honest with ourselves, us being honest and going back to our history and saying, where did we go wrong? When did the rain start beating us, Trevor?
All right. Let me bring in the Reverend on this. What is your take when the president himself alludes to the fact that only 2 tribes have led this country? Does it then create an us versus them, exclusion of the other 42, or inclusion of the other 42?
Well, I think what the president really was basing his statement on is the importance of inclusion. Once you feel you are excluded, then obviously you want to consider others as them and we. And what I heard, or the way I read it, is that we need to have now a discourse as a people, as a country, on how we can go all of us together instead of we and them or them and us. And until we manage to consider ourselves as having one destiny, that we can then go together and then find out how can we actually include everybody and everybody feel they are included.
Yeah.
That is, I think, where the discourse should be. Now, whether it is a rotational presidency, even that is, in my view, not really the answer, because rotation then, what are the criteria?
Yeah.
You know, there has been a mention of Switzerland, for example, as having rotational presidency.
Yeah.
I lived in Switzerland for over 20 years. The rotation is not regionally based, is not the French or German or Italian, but it is political parties. And it is the strength of the political parties. When it is your turn to now name a president,
yeah,
then is your political party which will name it. So it is not really regional or ethnically based.
Yeah.
So really where we needed to do is what will be the best arrangement, where we feel that it's not we versus them, but all of us together. And agree is a long way to go. Because if we were to talk of 43 ethnic groups going around, you know, in 300 years, we would not even have gone around.
Yeah.
So the complexity of it is what needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
And I would expect that there are ways in which we can begin to address that, including the devolution. And this is where I think rather than putting so much premium and emphasis on the presidency,
yeah,
we have to make the presidency least attractive,
yeah,
if we want people to then look at how we are going to use devolution as actually the best organizing and planning ideology in this country, so that the resources, there are more resources that are going to the counties, and many people feel that we can feel ourselves included into the national economy, not because we have a president from our tribe, but because we have way of organizing our resources, and everybody feels that they have equal opportunities to access those resources.
All right. Ashura, let me bring you in on this issue of rotational presidency. What do you think? Is that a solution?
I think, like before what I had said, if you look at the politics, as Kenyans, we have truly failed. Because when you look at politics, but we need to look at how inclusivity can happen. The Constitution of Kenya, Article 7, is clear about national language, how we can make sure that the national language becomes the tool that can lead us, that can unite us as Kenyan people. For example, if you talk about political parties, it's what has broken us. Even after every 5 years, we keep on disintegrating again and again. If you look at politics, we need to look at how people at the grassroots level are interacting with each other. We can share we have the private sharing, how both can unite and interact and coordinate. But if you look at the politics and the rotational, like the presidential that we're hearing, I think it will not help us. You've talked about that we have that rotational, but this issue has been, there in Kenya because we have 2 terms as per the constitution for the president, because he's trying to tell us how we need to change this. Because also we need to change about focusing on the tribe of the president, where they're coming from. We need to not only talk about this, but how to empower our people so that there is equity, how the resources are also shared equitable. How can this be done? How can we access businesses, entrepreneurship, all these drivers that drive the economy as well, that unite us as Kenyans? But if you have, variances of resources being shared, that makes us become more enmity.
Muthiora, what are your thoughts on this? Because is devolution even a solution then?
Devolution is part of the solution because it takes power to the Mwananchi at the very lowest level. What we have a problem with is leadership. That has always been our Achilles. Our forefathers divided us based on tribe because they needed to loot. They started with land and then it went to the other resources. And in order to have cover, they instigated one tribe against the other. When our current president's political father took over, that's President Daniel Moi, he was fiercely fought by, sorry to say this, a clique of Kikuyu leaders. And in order to survive, he now went straight on to divide Kenya along tribal lines. That was his only way to survive. So when our president currently comes and pulls out a stunt like the one he did, I'm not surprised. Which takes me to why I felt he was not competent enough to be president in 2017 and supported someone else for that position. What we need to do as a people is to hold our leaders accountable. At the moment, we all know that it doesn't pass a day when we do not look back to 2007. And we know that then our president and the deputy president went on to be suspects. They were charged with crimes against humanity. So it's the quality of leaders we have that keeps perpetuating this problem. So that's what we must address at the moment. We must face it head on. But our problem is we elect our leaders so casually, as if it's not our future we are determining when doing so.
Yeah.
Now, that said, I would wish for us to focus on building institutions, political parties per se, because politics in Kenya is like everything. It's where the resources are distributed. And then let's have these political parties have the decorum to know that the governance of a nation is the most important thing. Because if we had strong political parties currently, our president would be facing impeachment proceedings as we speak. But even before we got here, we know that from previous instances, his government has refused to obey court orders and has done a number of things showing that they can get away with it. So I plead that as a nation, let's have a moment to reflect.
Okay.
And
right.
Let's not continue on this treacherous path.
Okay.
We were here, and I'm glad NCIC chair is here, when the very divisive narrative about hustlers and dynasty began. We did not do anything. We've walked that road so far, and now people are saying, even so-and-so did that and that, and you never went after them, so you can't now come after us now.
Okay.
Action must start to unravel today.
Okay. Shiko, how do we foster cohesion? Because the young people who you deal with a lot, for more than 70% of the population, then they have a mind of their own. You cannot, I refuse to be convinced that after every 5 years, all of a sudden now, they realize that their friends are from this tribe or that tribe.
I think we basically don't listen to young people, because out here young people are crying over this 1.5% tax that has been slapped on us. Because a government that tells us that it will give us 7 years tax holidays, now slapping us with extra taxes. And they're like, if you listened to what these young people want, then cohesion would not be a problem. If we had political parties that are based on ideologies, political parties that don't go tribal every time they want certain seats, then I think cohesion is not a problem. And I think, honestly, and having Dr. here from NCIC, just having him here and having just him knowing that he sits in a position where this institution was formed so that it can help us with the cohesion issue. And if we reflect honestly, we have not even made a step towards that. Why is it that? Because this is an issue of morals. This is an issue of values. where do we stand when it comes to electing our leaders, like Muthiora said? We elect people to go buy themselves clothes and houses and, take big cars and take huge loans. And then we never ask ourselves, how sustainable is this for the generations to come? Trevor, those who will be going to vote right now, and majority of them are people just out of high school, other people, like majority of them have never voted any one time. And now they're seated and listening to their folks, and some of us actually having the conversation of the hustler, the dynasty, and who owes who what, and who will do what. Nobody is telling them that if you vote this person in, then your future is sort of promising. Because most of them don't have a future right now. You look at it and it's about Tala, and I said this before with you, Trevor, it's about Tala, M-Kopa, M-Shwari, and all those platforms that are there for young people to keep borrowing money to repay other debts. And then now we are here, this month we're starting to pay our SGR loan, and who's going to pay for that? Because most of us don't have jobs. So how are we going to service that? So the key thing is us going back and listening to what are the actual problem. And the actual problem is our young people need to be employed, need jobs, need sustainable economy. Okay. Our young people need to afford school, need to afford to go to hospital. This is what is critical to them. And they need to be assured of their future, Trevor.
Okay.
Let me just, Trevor, I think it's good to interrogate a little bit further this hustler dynasty dichotomy. When it started, I, as chair of NCIC, made a comment and warned those that are then trying to divide Kenyans between hustlers and the dynasties, that we have to be very, very careful, because this could lead us to the way of Rwanda or Zimbabwe or Venezuela if we go out of Africa. Anything that divides the Kenyan people between us and them now is dangerous. This is not to say that there is no poverty. Yes, there is poverty. We have the haves and we have the have-nots. Is the best way to handle that the way of class war? That is the question that we need to ask, because I don't think that's the way to go. When you look at the propaganda that led to the genocide in Rwanda, it was talking of the downtrodden, and then you use the radio and the other media to propagate that until you feel that now we are poor because they are rich, and therefore we must go after them. This hustler dynasty, hustler is also relative, really. There is, of course, absolute poverty to deal with. But I think what we need to do is to agree on what is the best way. Is the class war in the 21st century the way to go? The conventional class war as a solution it doesn't work in the 21st century. Now that is why, as NCIC, what we are planning to do now is to provide a national platform on which we are going to address the issues that are coming up now on the road to the 2022 elections. We unveiled a couple of weeks ago the roadmap to 2022 elections, what we are calling elections bila norma. And what we would like to do in actually 2-3 weeks' time, I'm going to convene a national symposium where we are going to look at ideas that are being put forward today as organizing tools for 2022 elections. And that is why I would like to invite Kenyans to be prepared to really debate this. Hustler versus dynasty. We have had others who have advanced some other ideas, which is a way of trying to say, can we really begin to look at ideas as we prepare for the elections, and not to go through a tool that is divisive and that is going to confront Kenyans between one another.
Right,
so I just wanted to say that this is something
we'll come to election bill and just a bit. Muthiora, I see you want to respond, but let me bring in Ashura first on this issue. We are talking about, do you see enough consequences for divisive tribalism? For example, are there enough political consequences such that if someone is found doing that, then they should at least either lose their seats or not be viable to run? Social consequences, are there people who are being named? Criminal consequences, shouldn't someone go to jail? Are our institutions failing us, Ashura?
That issue is very complicated, and yes, they have failed us. Institutions have failed us. You can imagine where MPs or senators themselves who are lawyers and they represent their own people, I think they are breaking the law, because people who need to, change the law, they would need to achieve something that's different, but it's still the same person who's representing this person who's broken the law. So for us to make this change to happen, I think the MPs and the senators should not be allowed. It's a human right, yes, to be represented if you're accused of a crime, but I think we need to limit ourselves by allowing people from outside counsel of the same team that's there, because I think if you represent on another, it's favoritism that will appear there. There'll be favoritism. So we also are not respecting the judiciary process. Many times, we see people have gone to court, nothing happens, or even we have seen in parliamentary proceeding, nothing happens. If you look at the BBI, the idea of IPOA, I think it should be independent, because that's what BBI is proposing, because right now IPOA will oversight issues of violence and etc. independently. So we need to focus on making sure that all processes are just and fair, rather than having our own. We need to have, unbiased people who are there, being unbiased and being neutral, so that you're not picking, whether you're in the judiciary or when you're leading your people. You cannot making law and then you're independent. It's not possible. They need to be that neutralism, and that's where we are failing.
Muthiora, you wanted to jump in onto this hustle and dynasty issue.
Yes. Trevor, the first step in solving a problem is in recognizing that there is one, first and foremost. Yeah. In Kenya, we have a rogue government. We must first acknowledge that fact. The Jubilee government came into office when these two gentlemen did their math and realized that if we bring the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin together, we will beat all our other challenges.
No, Muthiora, those are not the only people who voted for them, to be clear.
I am stating it because I have done my research
across all the country.
I have had conversation with people, both outside and inside government. We may want to look the other way, but if we do not face reality, then we will not get a solution. That's the arithmetic being done right now. People are saying, if I get this group of people and that other group of people will form the next government. So let's first acknowledge that this is our problem. So if this government does not have the legitimacy to be in office today, what do we do to move forward? We must make sure that we do not repeat the same mistake.
Okay.
So this government came into place based on the premise of dividing Kenyans. Mm-hmm. And now, again, we have someone looking to occupy the top office by bringing this discussion about a class war, when in fact it's not a class war, because what happens in a class war is the oppressed goes after the oppressor. But in this case, the victims will not be the oppressors. It's going to be all of us. But because it's going to get them into office, they do not care to run the narrative.
Okay.
So we must first own up to our problem.
Okay.
And that is, we've accepted for too long that it's okay to be a tribal nation.
Okay.
It's not okay to be a tribal nation.
All right. I see Ashura wants to jump in on that before I bring in Rev. Ashura, go ahead.
I just wanted to add something about the hustlers and the dynasties narrative. The problem right now is that we are trying to use poverty to separate us people, that this tribe is better than this other tribe, So now we want to start to use that, the poverty narrative, as the hustler narrative. And this is the way to, and I know for the youth, because what my colleague from Tribeless Youth has said, Shiko, that about poverty and the youth, yes, you cannot blame young people because how the politicians are using them. Because as a country, we need to make sure that the young people are moving even in that, development of from one poverty to upscale themselves. So how young people can also benefit themselves, because they need to access opportunities like education. How do you reduce the cost of education? Yeah. But right now, when you're talking about hustlers and dynasties and telling them that this fits your profile, then government are people who are the ones who are implementing the law. Let us look at the resources, then the poverty of the young people, and involving them in the politics so that they can mess up in elections. All right.
Reverend, you were charged with ensuring this cohesion, and even here you can see how heated this conversation is. Right. So what is the silver bullet now to ensure that the country is back on the right track as 2022 is fast coming through?
I would want to look at two levels of intervention as NCIC. One is how consequences would be seen to be what will tame the wayward politicians, if you will. Because it's individuals who you would use toxic language and incite people, etc. And I think we have a problem of attitude and behavior. Now, NCIC, there are three ways in which we are going to make sure that there are consequences that cannot be avoided. One is the social consequences, where we are now going to name and shame individuals, politicians, who are notorious of hate speech or incitement. And we have said that we are going to have a wall of shame. And I would say that many politicians would think twice before they want to be seen or to be shamed. So that's one consequence, social consequence. The second one is political consequence, which is related to it. And the political consequence is that if you have been named and shamed, then you should not be eligible to be elected to a position or to be appointed to a national position or any other position for that matter. And if a politician knows that they are not going to be cleared to run for an office, then they'll think twice before they make the utterances. And this is not just theoretical. Just recently from Sambweni by-elections, we as NCIC dealt with two politicians, or a politician and a leader. And in this case, because it has been in public domain, I can say that what happened with, say, Mr. Sifuna, the Secretary General of ODM, we agreed that he is going to offer 50 hours of community work. And this is work which will be supervised so that we see there is that consequence. And from there, he would not want to go that route again. And then we want others to know if they are also, if they have such offenses, they will also have consequences. The final one is criminal consequence. That after that, we will now go to court. And with these three levels, I would say that we are going to begin to see change. Yeah. Secondly, is now that is as individual level, but also the political parties to which they belong. Political parties must also be held responsible and say, if you as a political party, you have senior politicians who are known to have offended other Kenyans, and still you clear them and you make them your candidates. We are also going to go after the political parties. Okay. And that is why I brought it together, the Registrar of Political Parties, EACC, and IEBC, And we agreed when we met last week that we are also going to bring in DPP. This is a concerted effort, and we are going to use these institutions and say that really we need to have a political hygiene, if you will. We cannot have Kenyans who are political thugs really holding positions in this country anymore. And that is the responsibility not only of NCIC to hold them to account, it is political parties as well. Then finally, the wananchi themselves. Because sometimes they are the ones who are cheering this as their heroes. We also now are going to have a public education, more than just the civic or vote education. We are going to have public education as part of this roadmap to 2022 elections, where we will tell, especially young people, that really you also must be held accountable. If goons they come and they are part of that crowd, we'll also go after them because we know them. So that is what I would say is the strategy that we are going to have as we move to 2022.
I have to take a quick break here on the Monday Report Town Hall. When we come back, I see a lot of your feedback here on the Monday Report hashtag at Trevor Bidge at Citizen TV Kenya, and the videos that you sent in as well. We'll play that in the next half an hour right after this break. See you shortly.
in town. Zuba, utapata mwanasi wako. Washindi zaidi wanaendelea kujinyakulia hela kila siku kwenye promotion ya Jipange Ushinde na View Sasa. Wewe pia usisleki. Zimebakia siku chache tu promotion ya Jipange Ushinde na View Sasa iishe. Tuma shilingi 99 hivi sasa kwa paybill number 483888, account number weka Jipange. Ujishindie shilingi 1,100. Nunua content nyingi uwezavyo, uongeze nafasi yako ya kushinda na View Sasa. Sheria na masharti kutumika. Authorized by BCLB number 660266.
Yes, time leo kwenye Dimba Itambe. Leo ni Gialdem edition. It's a Gialdem team.
Moja ligi inaanza January. So if I was the coach, pia William na ekwe bench.
If we win, tutakuwa top of the table.
Uko sure. So na feel ligi akiwa kwetu anakuwa frustrated akwagi na hiyo chance ya kucheza Kenya anataka.
Discover new Guinness Smooth. Perfectly balanced for a smooth, refreshing taste. New Guinness Smooth.
All right, thank you for staying with the Monday Report Town Hall. This conversation on tribalism is still continuing even online. It is even heated still there. So it just tells you how much we need to work on ourselves as human beings here. I see a lot of bile. I will not read some of them, but this is what you had to say on video. Listen.
Tribalism and ethnic boundaries is real and deeply rooted since times immemorial, times of our forefathers to date. However, I have a very strong feeling that this can be turned around if and only if parents and our education systems can introduce anti-tribological studies from the CBC to the university, where we teach and we practice oneness until we get to that point where we shall all agree as a nation that we shall be one Kenya, one tribe, and with no boundaries.
The first step towards healing is acceptance. As a country, we must first start by accepting the fact that we are a tribal nation. We must then look for ways in which we are able to move away from this kind of politics and start practicing what we call issue-based politics. Like what happens in mature democracy, leaders are elected based on the manifesto that they present to the people of this country. Leaders are elected based on their character. Because if we focus on tribe, we are going to elect leaders who may not have the capacity to lead.
In different parts of the world, some people group themselves in terms of races, in terms of social classes, and in this part of the world, especially Africa and including Kenya, people group themselves in terms of tribal lines. In order to move people from tribal grouping or organization in politics, we will have to develop a framework, a clear one, where people will be selling politics of agenda, politics of interest, politics of principles that people can subscribe.
Now, for me, I believe the main reason as to why tribalism is still a factor 58 years down the line is because of the family upbringing we have here in Kenya, whereby you find out if you are raised from a certain community and your great-grandmother had some issues with another community, the same thing will be narrowed down up to you. You know, you'll be taught the same thing, that if I'm from Central, I cannot vote for Raila Odinga, or if I'm from Nyanza, I cannot vote for Uhuru Kenyatta. Because in this scenario, Raila Odinga is a Luo and Uhuru Kenyatta is a Kikuyu. But I thank God because the current generation, 28 years below, there's nothing like tribalism because we are learned, we associate ourselves with almost every person. And this I'm talking about with people who have been raised very well. And like those people who have been programmed that some person from another community is this and this, you know.
But there's nothing wrong with belonging to a tribe, but there's everything wrong with being a tribalist or tribalism for that matter. I'm a proud Rendile and a Kenyan.
For we as young people, we do not care who becomes the president, whether it's another Kikuyu, whether it's another Kalenjin. What we care as Kenyans is whether this person is going to deliver in terms of jobs, in terms of economy, whether this person is going to help young people improve their livelihoods and have better jobs and give young people loans, whether the person is a person of high integrity.
And in Kenya, we know corruption, it circulates within our nerves. It's in the blood, it's in the veins. There is no space left about it. So tribalism chips in that. We always feel that when somebody from our tribe hold certain positions, maybe especially in the government, we always feel that it will be very easy for somebody to access such positions, which is never the case.
All right, those are your views there. Engineer Lazaro here on Twitter says politics based on ethnic mobilization being practiced by most of our politicians is fueling negative ethnicity and frustrating cohesion. And Robinson Luceso says tribalism has been deeply rooted by the political elites in the citizens' mind that one cannot dare talk about it without mentioning his tribe. It's a menace. And Nelson Okumu says Kenyan politics are not based on issues. That's why we keep creating unnecessary anxieties of selfish gains. And we have Moigiwa Bobu, who says it started back in the time when you were born. Kwani we ungeitwa Trevor Stevens, lazima ungeitwa Trevor Mbija. The letter O is from the lakeside. Okay then. Clinton Pence says, lest we do away with the tribal names like, say, I'm a Kisi, you're a Kamba, then we are yet to achieve that dream. We can solve this by doing away with the tribal stance we stand by. Shika, I want to bring you back on this. There's been something that has come up, the issue of parental guidance and curriculum review. Is that a solution here? I'm trying to look for solutions now. How do we get Kenyans out of the tribal thinking?
Honestly, Trevor, it might be a solution because we've not looked at it, we've not tried it out. But are we really going to tell our kids that, yes, I've taught you not to be a tribalist, but when you come out here, the leaders that we're electing are very tribal and they will not give you any opportunity so that they can keep you very vulnerable and steal your money and steal your future so that you're vulnerable enough to vote tribally. You see, there's a whole thing, and it's a thing of the mindset. So this might actually work, Trevor. But working on a mindset has to begin by us who are responsible enough to wake up and go vote, by voting out those who feel like are rogue politicians or rogue leaders. There's a whole notion that leaders have to, and we heard the president saying, or rather asking, that certain tribes have to lead this country. My question is, and will forever be, when will I see a Makonde person leading this country? If then we have to go by tribes. But then I feel like our kids don't have the much knowledge about what happens, because we barely talk to our kids about politics. Maybe it's also a parental responsibility to start teaching our kids of what politics means to them. If they're missing school right now because you cannot afford school fees, tell them it's because we have poor governance and poor leadership, and they should never elect such governance if they want a bright future for their kids. This then will help us start changing their mindset.
Okay. I'm trying to look for solutions now. And I want to bring you Muthiora. What is the solution now?
Those of us who love peace must start to organize as efficiently as those who love and use war to ascend to power. We have realized that our tribes are too small to be feasible. That's why our counties have been coming together to form economic blocks. So clearly, there is strength in unity, and that's the way to go. Tribe is used to exclude others. That's when we say it's negative, or to gain unfair advantage over other tribes.
Yes.
So if your goal for backing your tribe is to do those two things, then you should know through training, like we've heard that it should be entrenched in our curriculum, that you're veering on the wrong path. When we are building a nation, let us be clear about the goal. And the goal for me is to have a great Kenya, where everyone has a fair chance at making it as long as they are willing to put in the work.
Okay.
We know that enough work did not go into teaching Kenyans how to coexist harmoniously.
Okay.
So that's where efforts should be directed at the moment.
All right.
Now, it's possible that we can celebrate our diversity. I have lived amongst a lot of tribes, both here in Kenya, and I have interacted with other tribes in Tanzania. But I will tell you, tribe is a beautiful thing, because I have been through those cultures. And when people understand what's at stake, then they give it their all, which is what we should seek to do with our people.
Okay.
Any leader who started their journey through dividing Kenyans will not get us to the intended goal.
Okay.
So we must exclude them from the table where decisions are made, because they will ruin not just our future, but that of the generations to come.
Okay. Ashura, what are your thoughts? What are the solutions going forward now?
I want to go back just a bit on the curriculum, that comment that has been given. I think it's a good idea, but the problem is that we always, if you look at the children who are going to school, when they're interacting with their friends, they don't know that this person is from this tribe or the other tribe. They just know this is my friend or a learner like me. So I think it starts at home with the parents themselves. Because when I'm cooking food, I'm saying this is our food, this is our cultural food. This is mokimo is for Kikuyus. If you go to Nyanza, people, they say fish is ours, is our cultural food. So I think maybe the parents can say this is a Kenyan food, this is our Kenyan food. The problem starts within the family themselves, where you teach the children the wrong thing, the wrong ideology. It's not only the family, it's also ourselves as Kenyans. Same way during elections, you're like, you know, my name is Wanjiko, or my name is Otieno, but when you're flying to America, I'm Kenyan. We start talking Swahili, habari. Why not do that here in Kenya? Why are we dividing ourselves with our names as tribals? So Article 7 talks about the national language, and I understand it, that yes, we have tribes, diversity is beautiful, we need to promote that, but as Kenyans, we need to have cohesion. Because the Constitution of Kenya can lead us to do that change, so that we don't have this enmity. National language is something we can go ahead, because what we do is that, we know we are changing. You know, I need to talk Kikuyu, I talk Luo. We cannot force people to do that because remember, all of us are not Kikuyu. You cannot say it's going to be a Kikuyu language only. How will you accommodate all the other tribes? Because you'll exclude the other tribes or oppress them. So I think we need to be cohesiveness, promote the national language, we use Swahili language or English where all people have learned that and we can understand, because the problem is ourselves. We need to promote the Kenyan flag. Outside there we really promote it, but here we say differently. Charity starts at home. It needs to start here. When we teach our children, say this food is a Kenyan food, don't start this is for the Nyanza, or I think that's where we can start.
Right, Reverend, 2023 is coming. So where do we go from here? Because we are all looking up to you.
Yes. Thank you. Now, I think solutions, because you are saying we need now to look at solutions. First of all, we need to agree as a people, Kenyans, that we want to bring the change that will take us from using our ethnic communities as having an advantage over the others. So there is what I would call social will and political will. The two must go hand in hand. And it has to be at all levels. I agree, at family level, at community level, at the school level, as institutions, and then at the national level. You know, if we are not very careful, devolution, although I see it is really one of the best things which we have, but if counties become ethnic enclaves, because that's what they are. If a governor is reduced to a tribal chief, then we have a serious problem there. So what we need to do is to find a very intentional way of providing spaces and platforms through which Kenyans will get to know each other. Because with our counties now, it is possible to have a Meru person, I come from Meru, who will go to primary school in their community, to secondary school, to university, and have a job, will never get to know about other Kenyans. So what we needed to do is to be intentional about making, and that is why integration in the NCSC is very important. So we need to provide these opportunities, programs, projects that bring people together. The thing that was an eye-opener for me in 1964 was when we had a project for digging furrows in Tana River. And it was my first time to meet people from other parts of Kenya that I didn't know before. So we worked together, we sweated together, we get to know each other together. Now, unless we are intentional in providing such programs and institutions, churches, etc., but also we need to go back to look at how National Youth Service is going to happen. I think we need to revisit the idea of making sure that after high school, Kenyans get together, work together, and get to know each other, whether it's for a year or 2 years, and for everybody. That's the children of the president, of the governor, of the peasant, etc., come together. That's the only way we begin to know that that's the way to build a nation. So a tribe as an identity is not a problem. You know, as she said, you know, the diversity of our food and all that. I'm very happy when I get chicken cooked by a lawyer because they're the best chicken cooks, etc. You know, but as an identity is not a problem. It becomes a problem when it is seen vis-a-vis against the other. Even in Europe, you have tribes, you know, but they don't take their tribe to the polling station. They can go, they have their wedding, they have their cultural, you know, activities. Okay, but when it comes now to choosing who your leader is going to be, because this is where now is the question of resources. Because as the saying goes, it is our time to eat. You see, the whole question is eating. It is the resources. How do we have opportunities for everybody to access the resources that we have? So that is why we need to demystify that the tribe is the problem. Okay. It is not the problem. Okay. So identity is important for us, and to agree that we must change this. Okay. Starting, as I said, with the attitude and with the behavior. Okay. Because before you have, there is what we call ethnic contempt. Before you profile and you name another person, already in your heart, in your mind, you have already done it. So when you pronounce it, is the last thing to do. So you need to change that attitude. The second one is behavior. And to change that is, I come back again to what I said, consequences. But we need to be more positive now and say, how do we affirm each other as Kenyans? To do that, we need to know each other. And the way I said is
the issue is with the consequences that you're talking about. Because how then is it implemented? We have a whole chapter 6 on this, but we still see them running. Now you say NCIC will come in. What will they do that is so different?
Yes, we are doing, what we are doing different now is that up to now we have simply been summoning people. They make statements. We then investigate, and we take them to DPP. They are tried, and very often, as it has been said, and that's why we are called toothless bulldog, because none of them is convicted. Of course, we have a few convictions. So, if we only approach it technically and mechanically, we will not get anywhere, because people have a way of getting around it. Plus, as I said, some of these politicians, when they are summoned by us, they go to their community and say, NCIC is after me because I am for you. And therefore, sometimes when we want to arrest people, their people come, they demonstrate, they say, mtu wetu, anaonewa. We want to go from there. And they show that, as I said, with the consequences, we have begun to see results. Yeah. You know, because a person will think twice before saying something that would lead them to either being shamed or to being bad from even having a government position. Okay. That is the difference that is going to make, and this is where we are going to concentrate on. Plus, of course, public education.
All right, Ashura, did I see you objecting to that? Or were you in agreement?
I'm opposing what we've had, because I think we need to remember that the problem, as before what I've said, that we need to emphasize on the resources. There is non-equity of resources. That is the problem. If a politician says he'll give me 1,000, so I'll just take that 1,000 to feed my family. I can't leave it. So we need to look at the issue, which is how we can look at how to include the youth, because those are the youth that come and do the demonstration. Because how we can change young people to access employment, education, affordable health, resources, empower young people. If we do that, if the resources are equitable, then that will be better. We need to ask ourselves before we blame young people that this is a national issue and an individual issue. We need to see how we can solve it and change that. I'm sure if we can do that, give them jobs, resources, education, then a young person will not do that, will not be instigated again. But poverty leads them to do that.
Shiko, you've been quiet for a while.
I'm agreeing with Ashura like 100% right now. Yeah. Because young people right now are desperate, are hopeless. And I'm here like, dear young people, can we not be used, but also, can we also try and vote out all these people who are messing our lives? Because with as much as we want to talk about consequences, and I'm sorry to say, because I've worked with NCIC before and I still work with them, and I really acknowledge that they do a lot of work in trying, but we have not yet seen someone being held accountable for inciting communities. Look at what is happening in Pokot right now. The politicians are begging to be flown out of the counties, but the question is, the people you incited, where will they go? Where are they going? So I am here thinking, can we start acting and not just talking and beautifying our documents and saying that we have this in the Constitution, we have this, and we are doing this? Can we start seeing more action?
No.
This maybe will trigger a feeling or a thought that we are serious about cohesion, we are serious about the hate speech peddlers.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry to say, but it's a confusing situation to see that government institution that has quote unquote independent also acting like us who are hopeless and here hoping that the institutions that are there will fight for us.
Okay. Muthiora, very briefly.
Yes. We have to be bold. It will take courage for us to get to where we need to be. It's unbelievable that we have a government that promised heaven but hasn't even delivered what's here on earth today. We have a commission such as the one that Kobia chairs, supposed to take care of the most important thing in Kenya, cohesion. And yet they've funded it to only be able to have less than 50 employees who are supposed to cover the entire nation. It's like when we were in high school and you're supposed to wear a shirt, but because you have a sweater, you only have the collar, but then the bottom doesn't exist. You do it just for show, but you do not mean for these institutions to do the job they intended to do. So our leadership needs to be bold, fund the judiciary as they have requested, because when justice dies in the hearts of men, even if you have the best constitution or the best sets of laws, you will never achieve what was intended in the beginning. And unfortunately, the leadership we have today, justice and liberty, they are dead in their hearts. So what we must do is remind them that the Constitution is not a suggestion, that strict adherence to the rule of law is not optional. It's for all of us. And there'll be consequences. And Kenyans should not look at this whole thing with gloom. Things have been changing, albeit slowly. We've seen a number of impeachments based on grafts. Yes, we may say they are politically instigated, but then something did happen. An incompetent leader was kicked out. The people need to speak out so the leaders know what's on the ground. And what's on the ground is you will instigate this tribal division. But when the rubber meets the road, eventually the people who will turn violent will come after you. That's where we are today. People are looking for an opportunity to grab because we've showed them that it's all to take.
It's free for all.
It's free for all. So yes, you will tell them we are fighting that tribe, but immediately after they get them out, they're going to come for you. That's what the youths are doing on the ground, looking for an opportunity to also grab like everyone else is doing. So don't be fooled that you'll get into office and be okay and fix things after you're in office. You mess it now, it's gone.
Okay, Reverend, I'll give you the final say on this because we ran out of time.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, first of all, is to say that, you know, when it comes to the laws, the rules, we have no problem with that. They are there and they are very good. But what really becomes the issue here is how do we organize our lives as a people? I think what we need to do is we need to agree that as a country, we are in trouble. We are in real trouble. And an opportunity comes once in a while. We have an opportunity now to say, as a people, we are in trouble and we must shape our future in a way that we are not going to find ourselves where we are calling, you know, we are saying hustlers and dynasties, etc. And that if we agree that we are in trouble, then the question is, how do we get out of that trouble? To me, that is what it is, and that is why I'm saying that one of the things we are going to do as NCIC in the coming 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is to provide really a platform where we shall have a dialogue together. Just like it came to a time when Kenyans said, we are in trouble and we must have a new constitution. I am one of those people who suffered a lot under one party rule in this country. We had a critical mass that said, time has come for us to change this. This is where we are historically as a people, and that is where we need to move from and go see where we go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've really run out of time.
I wanted something to say.
One second.
Yes. Anyone, and I'm following what our chair here just said, that shaming those who are pulling us down will work. Anyone peddling the rotational presidency is peddling the politics of exclusion. Anyone peddling the hustler narrative is dividing Kenyans. Let's shame them and shun them. There's a new way, and that new way includes things changing.
All right, a minute, Ashura.
Okay, I was thinking that Kenyans need to understand that the government, the policies, it's all about the heart of the matter. We need to push. We need to have our activities, our programs. We need to wake up, as what the NCAC chair has said. We need to take opportunities because they come once in a lifetime. So we need to see what opportunities are there for us to make this change going forward, and Kenya can move forward.
Shiko, 1 minute.
So can we just take the opportunity and vote out all the wrong leaders? Can we go for it, vote them out, and get good leadership? Thank you, Trevor.
All right, thanks. Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia, NCAC chairperson, thank you so much for making time. Muthiora Kariara, former presidential running mate. Shiko Kehika, founder, Tribeless Youth. Ashura Michael, member of the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. Thank you so much for coming in. And Sylvia Muturi, helping us with the sign language interpretation. Thank you so much for coming in this evening. That is where we leave it for now. We've really run out of time. This is a discussion that still continues online, but remember, we are one people. That's all I can say for now. My name is Trevor Mbija. It's always a pleasure having you with us. Let's do this again next week on Monday. Bye for now.
Thank you.